A video featuring Pete Buttigieg from 2011 has surfaced, and it's damning for anyone who actually cares about electing a Democrat who doesn't regurgitate right-wing talking points when it comes to income and wealth inequality. Let's take a look at what he had to say. Again, this is when he was a candidate for South Bend mayor back in 2011.
The greatest part of the population right now are people my age. And a lot of people my age don't have anything to do, and if they would just go and mentor,
there'd be another inclusion of this whole thing.
And you got
especially because the kids need to see evidence that education is going to work for them, right? So you see a lot of parts of
that's
town
part of the motivation.
Yeah, because you're motivated because you believe that at the end of your educational process there's a reward, there's a stable life, there's a job, and there are a lot of kids, especially the lower income minority neighborhoods, who literally just haven't seen it work. There isn't somebody they know personally,
and I think that's
who testifies to the value of education. So yeah,
to meet that person.
You bet.
They need to get that push from somebody other than if a family member isn't enthused about their educational history and lets them just throw their bag in the corner, like you said earlier, then things aren't going to happen.
Yeah, where are the fathers? I mean, isn't that the problem? These households, these poor households, just have either a parent missing or they're uneducated, and that's really the whole answer about income and wealth inequality in America.
Yeah, look, if he didn't have the background and context that he has, I think this answer would be less damaging. So if he had the context of then getting into office and fighting for the African American community and improving their lives, you'd say, okay, it was not a good answer, but his actions matter more. Well, given what he did do in office, I'd say the same thing, but it winds up being even worse for him. It was not a good answer, but what he did matters more, and what he did was terrible. So in South Bend, he says, "Oh, look, I cleaned up the white parts of the town, and all the white folks are happy with me." Why is he polling at 0% in South Carolina among African Americans? It's not just because he doesn't have name recognition, but to be fair, that is a big part of it. Okay, no matter what our policy points of view are, we're always fair about it. Name recognition does hurt him, but then a lot of pundits do this lazy analysis, and they go, and because he's so white, they joke around about it. Right? But what does that mean? They're also white. That doesn't mean anything. That's a nonsense thing to say, right? The reality is his track record in South Bend with the African American community is terrible. So Jonathan Larson and TYT Investigates found police talking on tape, documentation explaining what they said on those tapes, saying we're going to get the black police chief fired. We know Pete Buttigieg's donors. And they're going to tell him to fire the black police chief, and then they say white people are going to be back in charge. And what does Pete Buttigieg do? He goes into office. Then the cops say, apparently on the tapes, "Oh, the donor had the meeting with him, and he is going to fire the black police chief." And Buttigieg, right after that, does fire him.
He attempts to fire him, and then
he gets a lot of backlash after he fires him from the African American community. He goes, "Okay, fine, I'll demote him." But he's not the police chief anymore.
Right.
And then a huge portion of the African Americans in the police department eventually got weeded out in that department. And one African American issue after another was ignored. So there's also stories. Go to TYT.com for a lot of these, because Jonathan Larson did amazing investigative reporting on it, and the community is thankful for it. The council in South Bend mentioned the Young Turks 7 times and thanking them for their investigations that showed them what was actually happening in their hometown. So it's not just me saying it, it's the council in South Bend saying thank you for all the amazing work you did in showing that. By the way, you guys are responsible for that because you pay for our reporters. And then Buttigieg would say to an African American mother who was concerned about her son's death, "I'll get back to you," and then would never get back to them. So the proof's in the pudding, and his record is way worse than that comment while he was running.
Yeah, so I want to go back to his record, because you're right. I mean, it really does help contextualize, the ideology that was revealed in the video we showed you. But just to comment on the video and why it's so much of an issue is because, understand, like, while we currently have multi-billionaires talking about how they feel vilified because there are some candidates proposing a wealth tax, Understand that the vilification of poor people in America has been a long-standing tradition, and that's exactly what happened in that video. Now, it was maybe sugar-coated in a weird way, but what Pete Buttigieg was doing right now was blaming parents of children living in poverty for the poverty that they're living in. And he's basically saying, like, it's education. There's no educated parent in the household, so the kid has no one to look up to. But think about the generation we're living in right now, where student loan debt is up to $1.5 trillion, and more people are deciding to avoid going to college because they simply can't afford it. And so if you're dealing with a bad economic situation as a result of this system that's clearly rigged against you, you will be vilified by people like Pete Buttigieg if you live in poverty, if you raise your kids in poverty. It's your fault, according to Buttigieg. We need some good people, some good mentors to encourage these kids to go to school, the school that they can't afford.
And even if you thought that, hey, I think that's true and they should have mentors and whatever thing that you think when you see that, because I can see a lot of rich folks see that clip and go, well, I don't know what you guys are talking about. That he's right? So and not understand the problem that they're creating by having that attitude, right? But even if you thought that, okay, then did Buttigieg, after he won, because he did win after that debate, right? When he became mayor, did he go and mentor them? Did he bring folks in to mentor them? Way more importantly, to our point, did he increase the funding for African-American schools or any poorer schools in South Bend? Did he go out of his way to make sure that they had all the opportunities they needed? Well, that's the track record you should look into, because these words are damning to some folks, but his actions, I think, are far more damning.
And remember, he's the one who fairly recently put out a book where in that book, he made fun of Harvard students who were protesting in an effort to increase the salaries of janitors, because the janitors weren't getting paid enough. They couldn't afford the cost of living in the area, and Buttigieg referred to them as social justice warriors. So again, context does matter. This is who Buttigieg is, and if you watched that video and you thought, no, what he said wasn't that big of a deal, you're likely part of the American population who's one medical disaster away from going bankrupt. So he'll vilify you too.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat, emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.